Alright guys, welcome back to part 5 on the resurrection of my 40th anniversary Landcruiser. So, hope you guys enjoy, stay tuned. I got some sick post-restoration shots, post-resurrection shots, whatever you want to call them. Some high quality stuff later in this video. Make sure you stay tuned, check it out.
Here's an update. Just gonna kind of walk around, show you the place. Not much to say other than we've made it this far. Still got a ways to go. Turns out these are collection zones, so if you need any dirt or anything, there is a ton of it in here. I just can't get a good scoop really, but there is just, I'm gonna leave it here so I don't make a mess in my bay, but there's a lot, and you should probably check yours and clean it out. Here's 7010. Got a little bit of a nest in here. Let's look underneath, shall we? There's also stuff on here. Probably gonna take some of the stuff underneath, put it under that one. Yeah.
Here's another look at that freeloader who moved into the frame on the 80. Here's a look at the body mounts and how rusted out they were. So I went through and figured out which parts were needed to overhaul the body mounts, frame to body, bushings, whatever you want to call them. These rear ones unfortunately are NLA, so you can't get those anymore. So I found the best ones I could and painted over them, reused them. Here's one that you cannot reuse. You see the damage and the cracks. Here is one you can reuse. See how clean it is. And then here's a hardware number for one of the bolts that completely rotted out. As you can see, it looks like it's been on a diet compared to the other one. So here's another photo of all the hardware, how it's lined up. Now it's time for some carnage, some rust carnage on the Landcruiser. What is a cruiser without a little bit of rust, right? So, as you can see here, it is just awful, and it just keeps adding up. This is the middle row, left side seatbelt mount. It's a notorious rust spot, both passenger and driver side. So after a couple taps of the hammer, we realized how bad it was. And there's just another one we found. There's some rear collection zones that just get so much dirt in them. These rear quarters, they've seen better days. Yeah, so that's pretty much that. I'm gonna go through and show you how I dealt with it. Those lines I drew with the orange, that was so I could figure out where I'm going to chop this stuff off so I can just stop it then and there. Underneath the firewall on the passenger side, I noticed that it had also rotted out, probably sunroof drain or just a bunch of water collecting on that side. So we cut it out, got it cleaned up, fresh metal. Now we're going to roll the chassis out and get it underneath the 40th body. At this point, I was questioning my decisions. The body was so rusted out, I was wondering why I chose this one, right? So, go through a couple more photos here, and we'll pick it up in a second. So I picked up a welder from Harbor Freight to try and manage some of the rust that I'd found myself dealing with. There was rust above the windshield as well, so we sanded that down, found that it had penetrated a couple spots, filled it with weld, sanded the weld down, and actually hit it with a coat of primer to call it a day. As you can see here, this is how much of that rust we got out, and there's the primer. So overall, pretty simple fix, just mostly tedious and time consuming. This is the original USDM sunroof wind deflector or sunroof visor. If anyone has one, please let me know. I'm still on the hunt for a replacement. Here we went ahead and did all the work to remove the firewall insulator. I refreshed that, sealed it up, painted it because it had a couple tears on it. And at this point I decided to take it on myself to coat the frame with Pour 15. So I followed their instructions best I could. Got the frame all prepped and ready, cleaned, degreased, etched, all of it. And here's a nice couple shots of how that turned out. So as far as the Pour 15 job goes, the frame coating, I think it took about 30 hours altogether. And that's unbolting all the brake lines, sanding down the frame, etching the frame, degreasing the frame. Just prepping it takes most of that time. Painting it with the actual Pour 15, that went by really, really quick. So there's a nice before and after shot. We're just gonna keep going here with all the post frame cleanup shots. I know there are a ton of them, but these are pretty cool angles of the 80 series that, again, you do not get to see every day. Here's a little stamp of the VIN. Got it nice and coated and protected. Staying late, getting the job done here. Next day. Turned out great. I was very, very happy with how everything looked, but it was back to focusing on the body and dealing with the rest of the rust. The rust that was on the passenger floorboard, I did get that cut out, and I did get a little piece of sheet metal from another cruiser welded in there. So you'll get to see that's how everything looked after it was all painted, and then that's how it looked before paint. I sealed it up with an epoxy afterwards just to make sure it was watertight. Cleaned up the rest of the body underneath, got it looking lickety split. So things were starting to take shape at this point. And it was finally time to lower the body down onto the chassis. So enjoy the next couple shots of that. They are pretty cool. Alright, hopefully you enjoyed those shots. Now we're on the rear heater arc. Basically, I was undecided whether I wanted to use the rear heater or not, and so I went through all the work of collecting these rear heater lines, finding the best ones, and then actually sending them out to get powder coated. After they were powder coated, I got them electroplated in the OEM yellow zinc, and basically they're perfect. They work great. They should last another 20 years. And after all that work, I decided to just simply delete the rear heater.